Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone here, and welcome to the session, Enriching Knowledge and Experience Through Professional Learning Communities, Voices from Canada, Brazil, and Colombia. My name is Yukino Mori, and I am the Manager of Global Engagement at the International Office in Simon Fraser University, located in Vancouver, Canada. I'm here today also representing the International Relations Professional Learning Community under the Canadian Bureau for International Education, also known as CBIE. I'm joined by my colleague, Andrea Delgado Moro, who is the Director of International Relations at the University of Calgary, also in Canada. And Andrea is the current co-chair of our IR Professional Learning Community. And we are both extremely excited to be here at CAIE today, and we appreciate you all joining us. And before I go any further, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land and history of the place I'm speaking to you from. If you're unfamiliar with this, out of respect of our Indigenous history and culture, it is customary here to offer a land acknowledgement by the presenter for the land on which they are presenting the session from. If you'd like to know more about land acknowledgements, please visit the link posted in the chat, and Jorge, I will let you do that. As mentioned earlier, I'm joining you today from Vancouver, the province of British Columbia, Canada, on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I would like to also invite my co-presenters and audiences to post their local territorial acknowledgements in the chat, should you be comfortable to do so. So we have a bit of a tight agenda today. So in order to make sure we can deliver this smoothly, I would like to request everyone to remain muted until the Q&A session at the end. Please use the chat function on your screen to share any comments and questions for the presenters throughout the hour in either English or Spanish, and we will try our best to address them all. I'm sure today's audience are well aware of this, but the pursuit of internationalization in higher education and higher educational institution is nothing new. And many institutions around the world, including most of yours probably, have published internationalization strategies as an integral part of the overall institutional policy, priority, and mandate. Given this, interconnected networks and global awareness are commonly viewed as major assets, and international relation officers, like myself and my co-presenters here, continue to be at the forefront of implementing, mobilizing, and assessing these strategies on the ground. Today's session will be looking specifically at how our internationalization efforts can be positively influenced by IR officers supporting each other across regions and across institutions through this network of professional community of practitioners. With this, it is my pleasure to introduce Karen Delke, the Vice President of Development and Partnerships at the Canadian Bureau for International Education, who will be offering her remarks and some insights. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Yukino. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening for those of us joining in other time zones. Buenas tardes a todos. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that CBIE is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. We acknowledge and pay tribute to all Indigenous peoples who live either in the Ottawa region or elsewhere in Canada and beyond. We honor their courageous leaders of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Estamos encantados de presentar hoy esta sesión sobre la comunidad profesional de aprendizaje de relaciones internacionales de CBIE y las muchas maneras en que este modelo puede reforzar la colaboración en educación internacional entre Canadá, las Américas y más allá. CBIE is the Canadian National Association that brings together all sectors of education and promotes international education through the mobilization of expertise, knowledge, and opportunities for collaboration and leadership. CBIE's pan-Canadian membership is composed of more than 100 education institutions spanning the education sector, including Canadian universities, colleges, polytechnics, and school boards. Me complace especialmente compartir este espacio con Yukino, Andrea y Julio, nuestros colegas representantes de la comunidad profesional de aprendizaje de relaciones internacionales de CBIE, y con Sandra y René, dos de nuestras colegas internacionales más cercanas del sector de la educación superior en Colombia y Brasil, respectivamente. For decades, CBIE has sought to leverage its convening power and create spaces for like-minded members of our community to connect in targeted priority areas. We proudly refer to these groups as our professional learning communities, or PLCs, and they are places where the community can define its needs, gather to discuss and disseminate knowledge, plan events and joint activities, and leverage professional development opportunities. For many years, the education abroad, student advising, and immigration PLCs were considered as the most active within our membership. The content area of these PLCs reflected a time when internationalization efforts within institutions was largely focused on inbound and outbound student mobility. And in 2018, this grouping of PLCs was further expanded to include the International Relations PLC, the group that we're gathered here today to talk about. And this expansion was really a reflection of the changing internationalization priorities and demands that were unfolding across Canadian campuses. Clearly, there was another group of professionals that were emerging with expressed and specific needs to connect with each other and connect internationally that were not met under any other PLC structure. And the impetus really for creating the IRPLC emerged as a community-driven initiative to which CBIE responded by working with the group to determine its structure and its official mandate. And since its formation, CBIE and the IRPLC have worked jointly on a number of different important initiatives. And the most recent example of this collaboration is really today's joint session at CAIE, which was born out of an initial outreach by the IRPLC to CBIE to develop a joint session proposal together. And from CBIE's perspective, the idea of strengthening the profile and work of the IRPLC through this international forum made perfect sense, since unlike our other PLCs that tend to be more focused on domestic perspectives, the work of international relations officers is deeply connected and dependent on engagement with international partners and stakeholders. So what better way to explore the collaboration potential for the IRPLC with Latin American partners than through a session at CAIE? Y cuando empezamos a pensar en el marco de la sesión, pronto nos dimos cuenta de que la copresentación con asociaciones afinas de América Latina sería una forma importante de profundizar el debate. Por ello, nos pusimos en contacto con la FAUBAI y la ASCUN RCI como asociaciones hermanas con las que formamos parte de la red de asociaciones internacionales de educación. Y a través de esta red, el CBIE logra proyectar las experiencias locales de nuestras comunidades profesionales de aprendizaje a un nivel global, así como validar y comparar las prioridades con los socios globales y luego compartirlas de vuelta con nuestra comunidad. De hecho, las nociones de comunidad a nivel local, nacional y global están cada vez más entrelazadas y son cada vez más interdependientes. And by sharing our experience and this space today with ASCUN, RCI, and FAUBAI, and bringing Canadian, Brazilian, and Colombian perspectives to the discussion, We hope to inspire the exploration of deeper connections among our communities, particularly the community of international relations officers across the Americas. We realize that different socio, geopolitical, and economic realities may shape our respective local and national contexts, and we all may be at different stages in terms of developing our professional communities of international relations officers. However, there is undeniably a commonality of priorities and practices and a desire to deepen the international engagement of our communities with like-minded peers across the globe that can and should be leveraged in creative ways. And we really do hope that today's session is just the beginning of this important discussion. So thank you all, and I look forward to the conversation that's going to unfold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. I would like to turn the table to Andrea.
Muchas gracias, Yukino y Karen. I'm very pleased and, to be quite honest, humbled to share a little bit about the International Relations Professional Learning Community, otherwise known as the IRPLC. The IRPLC is a community of international relations officers whose work really focuses on providing stewardship and leadership on their institution's internationalization strategy and partnerships. Our community really creates a space for discussion, learning, and collaboration for international relations officers and those who work focuses on supporting and promoting international collaborations. Like the other professional learning communities supported by CBIE, we are indeed volunteer-based. So this means we really have the autonomy to decide about our own activities, the discussions we lead, and kind of decide how we are organized as a group. Next slide. The IRPLC was formed in 2017 by Julio Sevilla, who you will all get to meet shortly from Concordia University, and Carol Zacks from Simon Fraser University in British Columbia. And I do believe Carol is here with us today. So if you want to just turn on your camera, Carol, and maybe just give a nice little wave, that would be fantastic. So thank you, Carol, for joining us today. And it really was these two visionary leaders who saw a need for IR professionals to have a space across Canada to connect. Under their leadership, they grew this community for a group of 4, and I can remember those first days of us meeting and talking about it. So going from that group of 4 to now, which has a membership of over 250 individuals. During their leadership, Carol and Julio really also formed the steering committee, created roles and responsibilities, terms of reference, and the list goes on and on. Really a lot of great work under their leadership, which created the foundation for our group. So you can see by the map right now, this is our 2021-22 steering committee, which is comprised of 2 co-chairs and 4 to 6 steering committee members. So Janine Dennis Gonzalez from the University of Ottawa and myself currently serve as the co-chairs, having just recently taken over from Carol and Julio. I also want to give a shout out to Stephanie Dion, one of our other steering committee members, who I believe has joined us today. Stephanie is from Polytechnic Montreal, and appreciate her attending as well today. The goal of the IRPLC is really to foster the community of practitioners, and some of our overall objectives is to exchange best practices across institutions, to really look at building partnerships with key stakeholders, both at the local, national, and international level. And to Karen's point, today is a great example of how we're working with partners around the world to just really enhance that collaboration between international relations professionals. We really look to discuss and exchange key issues that are impacting our sector, and really are particularly interested in advancing international relations in the field of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then, of course, always looking to advocate for shared issues of concerns within this particular sector. If we go to the next slide, We talked a little bit about how that membership has increased over the past few years quite significantly. But if you, just to kind of give you a snapshot of what our membership looks like in 2021, we have over 187 members from the universities. That is our largest kind of group of members. And it's not as surprisingly because most of our bigger institutions have a dedicated international relations professional. But I think what's really nice about the overall breakdown of the membership is that we also have representatives from colleges, polytechnics, as well as school boards. And that really allows us to look to international relations practitioner, to international relations with various lenses. And if you look to the chart on the right, you can see that the membership is really diverse across the sector with various levels of expertise and experience. And I personally have to say that's probably one of my favorite parts of the IRPLC, just the ability to connect and learn from all different levels. So we have representation from associate vice presidents, directors, managers, as well as everybody from assistants and event planners. And that really creates a good space for mentorship and learning. Just to clarify for those of you who might be wondering, in order to qualify to be an IRPLC member at large, you actually have to be employed by a CBI member institution and hold responsibilities pertaining to the field of international relations. As Karen mentioned, the CBIE Community Hub provides a space for members to discuss topics related to international relations. This too is a forum that's only for members, so it's really thought of as a shared safe space where professionals can bring up topics or areas of, potentially maybe challenges and kind of lean in and collaborate and connect with colleagues across Canada. So just to give you an idea, the platform has been quite active. CBIE launched a new version this year. And since then, we have had 20 new discussions that have been started. And 42 updates have been posted. And what's really nice to see here is not only have those posts and the discussions being started by the steering committee, but actually from the members themselves. So it really shows that grassroots approach as well. So we're looking at really learning from each other throughout this platform. You can see here a number of our achievements in our short history. I won't get into all of the accomplishments because we have kind of packaged some of our activities and provided links to specific recordings in the resource packages. But you can kind of see here just a few of the idea of the events we have posted that align with our overall goals and objectives. So this year in January, we did host a session on how the change of the US administration has impacted internationalization. We've hosted a workshop in conjunction with QS Uni Solutions on advancing international partnerships. And one of those sessions looked at, the importance of ethics when we look to international partnership development. And then based on the trending topic of evaluation and assessment, our team has launched a series of sessions to share best practices when it comes to partnership assessments and have recently launched a working group. So these sessions have brought in 25 different guest speakers. And one of the fantastic things is now that we've pivoted into a virtual realm, we've had over 2,000 participants, tune in for these events from across the world. In addition to that, we have launched a report on the SDGs and the work that's being done at Canadian universities. And so, like I said, you can find out all of that information in the resource packages. So now you have a better idea of the IRPLC. I would like to invite my colleagues to join me for the group discussion. And so I see Sandra, Renee, and Julio, if you could turn on your cameras. And first, I'd like to welcome Sandra Garin Tarquino, who is the Director for the Office of International Relations at the Universidad Antonio Nariño, Colombia, representing the Colombian Network for Higher Education, Education Internationalization, RCI. And then Renee, hello, Renee. Renee Barata Zickman, who is the Executive Director for the Brazilian Association for International Education, FAUBAI. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome my wonderful colleague, Julio Sevilla, who is the International Projects Manager at Concordia University and one of the co-founders of the IRPLC for CBIE. So today's discussion really hopes to highlight some of the significance of the international relations professional learning communities surrounding advancing internationalization agendas, both at that higher educational area as well as international education, while inspiring, learning, and growing as a collective. So this is really an opportunity for us to share best practices and lean in and learn from each other. So I'd like to start off by inviting Sandra and Renee to share a little bit about their organizations and touch on what you're currently seeing when you look in regards to your membership and the need and demand to establish a community specifically for international relations officers in higher education.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this session on behalf of the RCI, the Colombian Network for the Internationalization of Higher Education, a network attached to the Colombian Association of Universities, ASCUN. We define RCI as a supportive, inclusive, and diverse network that promotes and facilitates scenarios, actions, and cooperation projects that contribute to strengthening the internationalization of higher education in Colombia, improving the quality of member higher education institutions, and deepening the member HAYS national and international relations. Today, we are 115 Colombian HAYS of different sizes and types, universities, technical and technological institutions, colleges, located throughout the country, which have in common a minimum structure for the management of internationalization and the interest to strengthen quality through internationalization. The RCI has national projects of interest to all members and nodal projects, which correspond to the nodal structure of the RCI. We have 9 regional nodes to which HAYS belong, generally because of their geographic proximity. Listening to the experience of the IRPLC and taking up a concept that we have introduced since 2017 to the RCI learning community, I would say that an important part of what our network is precisely a professional learning community in internationalization of higher education that aims to reach not only internationalization officers, but also academic and administrative staff in order to strengthen the practice of comprehensive internationalization. In fact, our RCI strategy has 3 fundamental elements. First, management and visibility. Second, cooperation, that means cooperation and action. And third, learning community. And I will focus on this last element, in which we include training and events. And I will mention 3 examples that reminds me the explanation about the your learning community in the CBIE. So the first one are our good practices meetings. We held the first one in 2019 in the city of Pereira. 12 practices in internationalization management were presented and 44 people attended, representing 33 Colombian HAYS from 12 cities. The second one was in 2020 in online format, focused on internationalization of the curriculum. We received 26 applications and we chose 12. And the 2-day event totaled more than 2,300 views. And now, currently, we have an open call for the 2021 meeting to be held next November. Another experience is what we call the learning community in internationalization of higher education meetings, which are led since 2017 by 2 universities, the Universidad Católica de Colombia and Universidad Antonio Nariño. This community is called CAIES, and this is a collaborative space in which HAYS seek new knowledge and peer responses to concerns that arise in the management of internationalization and contribute their own experience for the enrichment of the community. And between 2017 and 2019, we had 4 face-to-face CAIES with more than 500 attendees. And in 2020 and 2021, online CAIES meetings have been developed with the participation of about 1,000 people, mainly from Latin America. And our third example is our Internationalization plus Quality Group, a team formed in 2020 by 3 member universities of the RCI with the support of our executive secretary of the network, that was born as a need to deepen the relationship between internationalization and quality and bring together different actors for discussing concepts and practices regarding the new regulatory framework of the country. The group organized the first cycle of RCI meetings, in which during the 5 Wednesdays of last September, government representatives and heads of the network with significant experiences in 5 topics of the cycle made important contributions. The topics were interaction in the framework of Colombian quality regulations, internationalization of the curriculum indicators and the role of teachers, global learning outcomes, double degrees and programs in agreement, and virtual mobility. We had 672 live viewers from 14 countries and around 2,300 subsequent views. All these dynamics demonstrate the interest of our member institutions in strengthening the RCI learning community. For now, we don't have an exclusive group of internationalization officers, but we will probably have one. And of course, after know your experience, you will be our main inspiration.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It's wonderful to hear what RCI is doing and that there is an appetite to kind of expand within that IR area. Renee, may I pass it over to you to talk a little bit about FAUBAI and some of the thoughts around what your members are looking for and some of your initiatives?
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you all. Hello, boa tarde, boa noite, buenas tardes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. And I would say FAUBAI, the Brazilian Association for International Education, founded in 1988, what means it's one of the oldest associations in this field, oldest in the world. FAUBAI has more than 200 associated members, mostly Brazilian higher education institutions, both public and private, all types of institutions, what means universities, university center, colleges, and technological institutes regarding the Brazilian higher education system from all the 5 official regions from of the country. The associates are always represented by the heads of the international office at Brazilian higher education institutions. FAUBAI aims for the internationalization of Brazilian higher education, education on 3 main fronts: expanding the internationalization process in Brazilian higher education institutions, promoting the Brazilian education system abroad, and providing professional training for its associated. FAUBAI provides dedicated service by way of its expertise, publication, portals, representing Brazilian higher education abroad, promoting international cooperation and leadership, conducting events on knowledge sharing, providing advisory service, learning and training. In Brazil and Latin America, this is even more necessary, despite all the very important advances we have seen in the internationalization of higher education institutions in the region. In the region, we still face, we have to recognize this, a lack of public policies to support internationalization, unfortunately. There is also a lack of institutional planning, budgeting, and evaluation of internationalization activities. Also a lack of financial resources, infrastructure, and professionalized human resource, both for academic and administrative work, what reinforces the important role of an association as FAUBAI. International education today is a requirement for higher education institutions in order to train citizens and professionals able to work in an increasingly complex and intercultural world. There are for sure many types of internationalization, many technicalities, concepts, requirements, financing, so on and so forth. This requires teams that need to be increasingly professionally prepared. Training is therefore one of FAUBAI's main and priority areas of action. We have been developing workshops, seminars, training, conference, and we have just 2 weeks ago created an online forum specific to this important issue. We have at FAUBAI, and suppose the same in Colombia and even in Canada, a very diverse set of associates, large, important universities, research-oriented with international recognition, but as well, small higher education institutions located in the countryside of Brazil, mostly offering sometimes just undergrad studies. Public and private higher education institutions with more and fewer financial resources institutions. Large international offices, sometimes with big teams of people, but also many of one-person office. What's very clear for all our members and for our association, they all need to constantly empower themselves, and FAUBAI aims to contribute to this. We are really very, very happy to have this session and to work together with our Canadian and Colombian colleagues. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Renee. And it sounds like FAUBAI is doing a great work in regards to advancing and providing opportunities. And congratulations to that virtual forum. I know how much time it takes to get that up and running. And so a huge accomplishment from FAUBAI. I have heard a lot of synergies in regards to what both Sandra and Renee have been talking about and some of the things that we have experienced within the IRPLC. I would like to pass it over to Julio. Maybe you can build upon what Sandra and Renee has talked about and share some of the lessons that we've learned surrounding building this PLC, just in hopes of sharing with others that are looking to seek similar initiatives in their region.
Thank you, Andrea. Gracias por la invitación, Kai, a mis colegas. It's a pleasure to share this panel with Renee and Sandra. Wow, I mean, what you're doing is very impressive. I think there is a lot of for us also to learn from you. Also, thank you, Yukino and Andrea, for being here and your moderation. Regarding these particular lessons that we have learned, that there are many actually. I couldn't finish if I have to say it. Over the past 3 years, we have learned a lot because we were just a group of colleagues just trying to get together, and we didn't have really any experience about forming a PLC. So we started from scratch, and it was a kind of a coincidence, and it was a nice coincidence because it was a group of people that were very enthusiastic with the same interest that decided to get together and explore how can we create a community that was different and not duplicating what the other communities were doing. And just for your records, the PLC focus on the overall strategy. And when we're talking about the overall international strategy, we're saying that for us, internationalization, the way we see internationalization is not just one piece of student mobility or recruitment or research or faculty member, but how can we connect all these pieces together to advance our strategies and sustain our relationship internationally. So we all have this interest, but there wasn't any forum, and we wanted to learn from each other. So we created this community. And at the first time when we started, we assumed that we knew our community and everybody will have the same interests, right? But I think one of the first lesson, I think it's where I'm going, it's that it is very important to know the community and your target audience for when you're creating these communities. You need to understand their interests, their concerns, their drivers, who are the members, and not assume that everybody has the same ideas or the same level. So that was one of the lessons, that we had to do a lot of work in order to get familiar with our community. The second one, it's a little bit, I would say, more positive in general, and it's one lesson learned is how useful and how interesting it has been for us to create this community. And it was not just the sharing of experience. It was not just the learning, but also the meaningful and intimate connection that we created, that it was thanks to this forum that connected our similar interest, that we started talking and collaborating, and we were able to have this trust among us to start outside even the community, to start working together. And that has been a big lesson for us, that we were expecting to create something and we ended creating something that it was actually very useful for everyone. So I stop with that, Andrea, and thank you.
Great. Thank you, Julio. I think, we can see a need across the board for these kind of professional learning communities to come together, and how the complexity of international relations too. It's really hard because there's so many different intersections when we look to international relations professionals. But I wonder if you all could share, I know, Renee, you talked a little bit about some of the challenges, and Julio, some of the assumptions that maybe were made when we're looking at starting a professional learning community or providing professional development. But maybe talk a little bit more about some of the challenges you face and some of the things that we've had to do to address those challenges. Does anybody want to go first, or?
I can do it. Yes, I've just mentioned that FAUBAI has just created an online forum as a space for discussion, learning, collaboration, and communication between our members, and around 10 main themes there are. Internationalization at home, internationalization of curriculum. And those themes, we have done a pool among our members, and we have fixed it like this, those 10 main themes. Internationalization at home, internationalization of curriculum, language policy, international mobility, virtual exchange, cooperation agreements, MOUs, social commitment in internationalization, which is a very, very strong part of Latin American, especially higher education. And we have to do this internationally as well. Internationalization of research, internationalization management, joint and double diplomas, regulations, what means visas, documents, foreign languages, visitors, professors, etc. In some countries, this is complicated to organize and to know and to regulate all those things. And last but not least, the number 11, because we have added one new theme, data protection law, privacy. It's really very, very important issue. And this is immensely useful for our associations. And we also have a new self-assessment agreement, instrument for the degree a sort of metric and indicators to indicate the degree of internationalization, but it's something self-assessment. It's not to be published, but it will be also an instrument to help the higher education institutions to plan their international strategies. And a Brazilian virtual exchange program as well. I would say, but the most important is this new online forum, and we are very, very interested on knowing more about those professional learning communities in Canada and what we can do together, because we might do things together.
That's great. Thank you so much, Renee. Sounds like a long list of topics that you're looking to tackle, which in itself brings challenges in terms of prioritization. Sandra, can I pass it over to you?
Thank you. Some other challenges. Well, always the lack of resources and time. I think that's the big challenge. Also, the commitment of all members. The creation of community requires teamwork and contributions from each of the members. And when not all members of the community fulfill their commitments, the work becomes complex. And as a result of this, well, those who work the hardest benefit the most from the community's results. And contradictorily, this is not always well received by the members of the community. So managing the conflicts arising from this is a challenge. Another issue is identifying best practices for visibility in the community is not always easy. And it was our case in the RCI. Once, for one of our KIS meeting, we launched a call to chosen Colombian experiences and received only one application, which led us to return to the method of inviting those we knew who were good in something. In that case was in the strategies around internationalization and alumni. And of course, when you choose because you know, it limits the idea of making others visible. And the other challenge, and probably I said at the beginning, the challenge was the lack of resources and time, but maybe more than that is that today we must be more creative in attracting colleagues to the community. We have a saturation of conferences and meetings, so the big challenge will be to create added value for community members.
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, I think we're all shaking our heads from the IRPLC because it really hits home in regards to many of the challenges that we too have faced. Julio, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in hopes of, the sustainability of the IRPLC and some of the work to engage members across Canada? And then we'll go into the Q&A section. So just a reminder for individuals, if you want to post your questions in the chat, but we'll take maybe just a couple more minutes to wrap up the discussion. Over to you, Julio.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with both of you, Andrea and Sandra, about the challenge of engaging people. And for that, I think one is it's related to another challenge, and it's building trust and sense of belonging to this community. And I think that's achieved just with actions, by showing the value of what we can provide to our community. But at the same time, something that it's very important to maintain this engagement in the community is to maintain this dialogue, a constant dialogue with the community. In this case, what we did, and engage people that are not the same, because I don't know if Sandra or Renee, if that happened to you, but sometimes you ended having the same people participating, but there are people that are maybe more shy or they don't know how to participate. So knowing your community, as I was saying before, and knowing what they really are their interests, you will be able to start engaging people in the different activities that you do, and it's not the same people. And maintaining that dialogue, right? Talking to, like, sending. We do a survey. We do a plan every year and we try to start involving different people. The other thing, and I'm not going to take more time, is that something that Andrea mentioned at the beginning. We created a government structure that precisely was strategic in the sense that invited people from different geographical regions, with different backgrounds, different levels, college, universities. So they can be also ambassadors of our community that could also engage other people. So it was like a kind of a chain of a structure change that allows us to get to different people and start engaging these different professionals in our community.
Julio, I think, yeah, the governance structure really has been key in terms of also that continuity and just allowing other people, the members to do kind of shadowing and feel comfortable and gain that confidence to really take on that role as an ambassador. I see some questions coming in through the chat. So I do want to thank Sandra, Renee, and Julio for this very enriching conversation and for sharing some of the wonderful work that each of the associations are doing. And I'll pass it over to you, Kino, to lead us through the question and answers.
Lovely. Thank you all. And Karen, I see you're back. Great. I just really want to continue this discussion really as a group and also try to incorporate some of the questions that we have been receiving from the audiences. Just to let everyone know, you can still submit all the questions or comments in the chat. And if you prefer to say on the microphone, feel free to do so as well. Due to the time constraints, we may not be able to completely answer all of them. And the first question I have for the group is, so it seems like, Sandra, you mentioned this, and we also received a question around this on it as well, is around the sustainability of these professional learning communities. So we're wondering, how can we ensure that these communities are sustainable and that we have the capacity to continue growing and increasing our impact, especially given the fact that, one, as Andrea mentioned, we're primarily volunteer-based in a lot of cases. We have limited resources, as everyone have mentioned today. And the field of international education and international relations itself is just rapidly changing and constantly changing. What are your thoughts around that? And what are the key factors of making sure that these are sustainable and successful? Anyone who wants to jump in.
Okay, I will. I would say, yeah, the sustainability of communities is one of the greatest challenges because it depends on the will of the people. And in this regard, I think that the communication of results, their visibility and the recognition of those who volunteer their time and sometimes other resources are key elements. And the results should be consolidated and presented to the entire community on a regular basis so that it's evident that the community's work has value. The communication of these results can be done through different means, a community meeting, videos, reports, and well, actually, I think you have been doing it very well through your platform, your hub, and well, we will take that model for our learning community in RCI. And in addition to seeing the results as a whole, I believe that recognizing people is important, and the community could have special recognitions and systematize them in some way. For example, on your website, show the contributions of people and how they have been retributed. I was mentioned that the most you work in the community, the most results you have. So maybe these people can share these other payments, these kind of payments. The contributions to the community usually imply additional efforts, and they usually also generate contacts, collaboration, opportunities, new projects, etc. And I think the key is to share these other results, these impacts with the whole community.
Absolutely. Julio, Renee, do you want to add anything?
Maybe this is really, a big challenge, But at the
Mhm.
same time, I think that international relation officers, they see very clearly the immense advantages that these communities bring in professional, personal, institutional gains. Sustainability, I would say, also comes from the actions of the associations like CBIE, RCI, and FAUBAI that promote these communities. This shows us the great role of our associations. There is also the possibility of developing programs, projects in partnership. For example, in the case of FAUBAI, we developed an important project, internationalization metrics, that I've just mentioned, with support, for example, in this case, of the British Council. And we can find partners also to help us to finance and to have this sustainability that is really a very important issue. But I'm completely convinced that the gains that we offer from these communities are really very clearly understood by the professional, and it helps to sustainable as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Julio, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, very quickly. Well, first, yeah, I echo what Renee just said about the importance of having a solid institution such as CBIE as part of the umbrella that give us a home, right? Because there is already a structure and activities and credibility associated to the organization. So that helps us to continue. But there are other three things that I'm briefly going to mention. And one is in order for continue relevant, something that we are trying to do, and Andrea and Janine has been very successful to do that when they took over the leadership, it's to anticipate to the needs and the knowledge that we would like to support or to give to our community. So, for instance, the example that Andrea mentioned a few minutes ago about the conference of the change of administration in the United States and how that change of administration will impact Canada or Canadian institutions, that happened before the change of administration. And so we gave something new. Also, the Sustainable Development Goals, there is something new that the people are not yet there, that they need to learn. So that helps a lot. The other is the fact that we're trying to give practical information and give something that they can use in their work. Yeah. The community can use in their work. So we, with the help of CBIE, we have produced a lot of podcasts and reports and information that they can consult, right? And then finally, and I finish with this, it's we're trying to create value by connecting our community with other networks around the world. Something that doesn't, we know each other, right? But we're trying to bring new players that give this international perspective to our community. And that's another, like, when the community see these three things, and they see that they can get value, they can get networks, and they can get practical tools, they tend to come back and stay connected with us.
Thank you so much. And for the other question that we had received, Andrea, did you want to quickly chat about the peer mentor opportunities? I know Karen had provided some information there as well. Thank you, Karen. But I think for us, our PRC specifically, it's more of an official mentoring program.
No, I think that's a great point. We don't have a formalized program started within this particular PLC, but I think, just as I mentioned before, there's so much happening at that grassroots level, and having those platforms and having this community has already started these, I know, informal mentorship kind of buddy systems that have just come up through, attending a similar event where there's a topic that a more junior level experienced practitioner is looking to kind of learn a little bit more. And so I can personally speak, I've had many IRPLC professionals reach out to me to say, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing in terms of evaluation? And we've set up subsequent kind of monthly check-ins to learn from each other. And I know that I'm not the only one, that's happening across the board. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I joined the PLC. I have learned so much from this community. And I will be very sad when my term goes up, because the sense of community that we've even created within the steering community, they're like, we have family, right? So that's another really great point.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm a bit conscious of time, so I'm just going to combine our concluding remarks with my last question. So if Renee, Sandra, and Karen, maybe Karen, you can go first. If you want to kind of touch on what are some of your next steps that your organizations are thinking of in moving this forward, and we'll end there. Karen.
Okay, thanks, Yukino, and thanks everyone for this really, really wonderful discussion. I guess what I would offer is, I think it's really incumbent upon CBIE or any association to continue to remain flexible, nimble, and responsive. I would say that those are the three main sort of characteristics. And I think it's just a mutually reinforcing, cycle, whereby if we can continue to respond to the needs of the community, we can continue to innovate and do interesting things and elevate the profile of the PLCs. And I think another, and this is a direction where we do want to move in the future, is not just supporting the PLCs, but having it be a two-way street, and creating more spaces for communication and channels for the strategic feedback coming from the PLC to CBIE as an organization and as an association. We launched our 5-year plan. We're just sort of in the initial phase of implementing that plan, but we would like to seek to create new ways to provide the space for our PLCs to help shape the future direction. So I think that also feeds into some of the, the benefits that can come from the PLC and from members of that PLC, knowing that they're shaping the direction really in the positioning and profile of the National Association. And my last point really is about the notion of being responsive and us needing to evolve as an organization. We do seek, and it was part of our strategic plan, we would like to see the creation of a new PLC focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion and indigeneity. I know, Andrea, you had mentioned that in your remarks as well. I mean, I think the time has come. We need to put some focused effort around that, wrap our arms around that, as well as we're launching and really we're in the beginning stages of a network of senior internationalization officers. So yet another grouping of professionals across our institutions, across the community, that again, we see the need, we've heard the need for them to come together and share those experiences and good practice. So again, perhaps new communities all intersect and connect with all of our other PLCs in interesting ways, but that's on the horizon in terms of from CBIE's perspective.
Sandra? Sorry, we have a minute left.
Yes. Well, at RCI, we are finalizing our strategic planning for the next 4 years. In general terms, RCI will continue to bring the voice of its members to different scenarios, opening opportunities and contributing to the national projects. At the national level, we will continue to interact with different actors of the sector and while seeking agreements in the understanding of changes in internationalization and its indicators, and generating spaces for training, exchange, and capacity building in international education. And in the international arena, it will advance in the development of strategic alliances with special attention to the dynamics of South-South cooperations. And let me mention one of our most important initiatives, the Latin American Initiative for Internationalization, INILAT, made up of associations and networks from Argentina, Brazil, FAUBAI is there, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. And we are working together and also creating a Latin American space for learning community in internationalization of higher education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Renee, was there any couple words you wanted to add in there? Squeeze in there?
Yes, to reinforce the importance of INILAT in the Latin American context. Really, we have created this initiative last year because and during the pandemic. And from there, 1.5 years, we have been doing very, very important initiatives and activities related to professional learning as well. And this is very important. Regarding Brazil and FAUBAI, I think that I have already mentioned the main actions, future actions and present ones that we have been organizing. I need, in fact, to add something like my final remarks, the importance to continue to build the spaces for dialogue and a global agenda to contribute to build, especially to build a less unequal world, based on important values for the field of international education. Because we are different, we're diverse, but we can have common solutions and challenges, taking in account often different realities. What we are discussing in this session, for example, and thank you again, CBIE, RCI, CAIE, for sure, Canada, Colombia, Brazil, CBIE, RCI, and FAUBAI is an excellent example of what we must do in the future, and the role as well of our associations. The associations have been capable of dealing with complex situations. This is very, very important. And the example of the pandemic, not just that, but especially this, shows us that we were capable, and we are still, and we will continue to be capable to dealing with this so complex situations, and especially the uncertainty of this so complex times. Yes. Our associations are well positioned to play a vital role in our collective future, and we really want to continue to work together. We have to. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'd like to wrap up the session.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, again, and we'll look forward to having this conversation and continuing this throughout the kayak.
Thank you all.